So a reporter named Mick Wright, his handle on Twitter was Broken Bottle Boy. And I remember the very, very, very early days of Meghan supporters. He was actually very active on Twitter as being a supporter. So he's always been, to my knowledge, an active supporter of Meghan and Harry, in that he would always point out the unfairness of the press reporting that was happening to them. So he had always been, to my knowledge, and I say this because I've not seen his tweets for a long time, and sometimes on Twitter there are certain tweets you see and then you don't see them, and if you don't actively go looking, you don't know what's happening. But anyway, he's always been, to my knowledge, a supporter, especially in the early days. He was one of the few, I would say, white male reporters that would stick his neck out and name the injustice that Meghan was facing. So anyway, he did an analysis of the Daily Mail's coverage, and I think it was a bit forensic, to be fair to him. He did a great job. And what he did, which I liked, was that he started with the numbers, because the numbers are the argument. So with the numbers, he said that 70 news stories using Meghan as the hook were published in 19 days in April 2026. Bear in mind, we are still in April. And he said that there was one story roughly every 2 hours on April the 16th between 5 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. So you had 3 stories 12 minutes apart on the 17th of April. And one was about a rugby match at 11:23. One was about Her Best Life retreat at 11:35. And one was about her oversized shirt at 11:37. So essentially, the stories, 3 stories in 12 minutes. 2 stories were even 2 minutes apart. And there was one story that was criticizing her for the retreat. And then one story trying to earn affiliate cash from the shirt that she wore at the retreat. You've got to hand it to the Daily Mail, because they are thoroughly using Meghanomics to generate money for themselves. They are vile, they are disgusting, and it's just something else. It's something else. It's almost as I keep saying this. It's as if I'm living in an episode of Black Mirror. It's unbelievable. Now, obviously, in my many videos, I have spoken about this. In fact, was it yesterday or day before? I spoke about the affiliate cash. 6 something a.m. in the morning, they slayed her. 6 a.m. in the morning, they tried to make money off the shirt she wore. And then by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they were slating her for for the fact that she herself was using her platform one-off to tell people where they can get the shirt from. Unbelievable. And I like the fact that Mick Wright is quantifying this, and his quantitative and qualitative analysis is what makes this article slightly different from other articles saying, oh my God, stop bashing Meghan. Oh my God, why are you bashing Meghan? He is giving you the data, because men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. And he also points out the contradiction at the heart of all the Daily Mail's Meghan coverage. And he writes that it is that the Daily Mail consistently argues that nobody is interested in Meghan, while at the same time they keep using up a lot of energy ensuring that her every move is reported. Even when she is not seen in public, they will still report something on her. For the most part, all she does is stay in Montecito, in her house with her children and chickens and husband. And then she pops up once in a while to sell her products. And yet they will always find something to write about her. So Mick also said that while the Daily Mail's news pages keep up a constant drumbeat of, oh my God, she's horrible, and they deride her and they mock her, right? The fashion pages of the Daily Mail are looking at everything she is wearing to the tiniest detail so they can tell their readers exactly where to find the clothes and even more affordable versions of those clothes. So the retailers who sell her clothes, they're making profit from those retailers. They're making profit from retailers who sell similar versions of the clothes. It's unbelievable. So essentially, the paper is monetizing Meghan twice simultaneously. So they're monetizing her, firstly, through the outrage content. Guess what Meghan did wrong again today? That kind of outrage clicks, they're monetizing her through that. And that drives the angry clicks, and that drives the trolls and derangers. And then they're also monetizing her through the affiliate revenue that drives shopping clicks. So the editorial position and the commercial position are contradictory, because the editorial is like, oh my God, we hate Meghan, she's not relevant. And you have your Jan Moires and your Alison Pearsons and all those random horrible people. They're writing horrible things about her for the outrage clicks. And then on the other hand, you have the fashion people saying, oh my God, look at what Meghan's wearing, and this is where you can get it. So at the end of the day, the paper maintains both positions because it is profitable, because they are making a shed load of money. And I wish I was a number cruncher, because I would love to know the numbers. I would love to know the numbers, because like I say, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. So I think that Mick Wright is also doing something that is particularly valuable, which is to examine how each story is constructed. So, for example, he uses the Her Best Life retreat as coverage, that particular coverage of Her Best Life retreat. He's using that as his case study. So let's follow the case study. So the Daily Mail's framing suggested that the retreat was something Meghan herself created, rather than an event she was invited to appear to. Even Mick Wright himself. And see, this is where these reporters, this is where they get it wrong. He said she was paid to attend. And we know that Meghan was not paid to appear at that retreat, because there's no way that retreat could afford her. I know, trust me. A lot of these retreats, they don't tend to pay majority of people, and that's because being on that platform, being platformed by a retreat like that is good, because if you know what you are doing. I remember somebody saying to me, another speaker said to me, there are speaking gigs that she actually pays to speak at. So there was one she paid for where Oprah was a guest speaker. So she paid so that she can say, oh my God, I've been on stage with Oprah or something like that. So people will pay to appear on stages like that. So I know Meghan wasn't paid. So even Mick got it wrong by saying Meghan was paid. Anyway, also, Mick said that the article described women as paying to get a photo with Meghan, when the documented first-hand accounts from multiple attendees establish that the retreat was a full weekend program, of which Meghan's appearance was just one element. it described her as bemoaning her very hard life, when she actually was talking about how life is in the public eye, how life can get. And she was talking about the attacks against her. And those attacks are real. We have evidence. And the Mail's own archive, Mick points out, unquestionably confirms those attacks. So all the Daily Mail had to do was look at its own writings, and what Meghan said is actually confirmed. But it's the way, remember what I say about framing. And I'm so glad that Mick Wright is saying the same thing that I've been saying. So, but like I said, even he got certain details wrong. And remember, at the end of the day, and I don't mean this in a horrible way, and I'm not saying this, whatever, but there are things that me as a black woman, I would pick up, that things that Mick will not pick up. And that is the truth of the matter. And maybe that is why I feel as passionately as I do. Because there are certain nuances and certain things that you would pick up as a person of color that other people might not. Also, Mick tells us that the hospital footage analysis is more revealing. He says 3 days after Harry and Meghan visited Melbourne's Royal Children's Hospital, the Daily Mail produced a 564 word story based on a few seconds of video in which a member of staff briefly placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. And the story described Meghan fixing this lady with a stare, her mouth tightening in a grin, batting her eyelashes. I told you this before, that they've actually written things about Meghan blinking. Seriously, they've written stories about Meghan's blinking, and the entire piece was constructed from posts lifted from X. We know that. We've always said that. Even Tom Bauer confessed that he sources his book from derangers. And Mick describes it as nothing but projection, nasty jokes and smears from a social network turned into a grotesque parody of analysis. We could have told you that. And we've been saying it. But I think there's a little bit that gets me, because this is exactly what people like me, I've been saying this for I don't know how long, but it gets picked up because Mick doesn't look like me. And that's the truth of the matter. Because sometimes people would only listen to people they feel look like them. Let's put it that way. And I'm being very polite here because there are things I can say. So the point he makes about the Daily Mail and social media obsessives is the one I truly want to highlight, because the only thing that separates them is the size of the megaphone. Because the Mail can take a brief expression from a video and turn it into a proof of a tense moment. Meanwhile, I have it on authority that they used AI to enhance that little 1 second moment of that video. So that was enhanced with AI. So it's actually fake. And yet, the original footage absolutely shows nothing. But the Daily Mail's framing creates something out of something that wasn't there. Basically, big fat liar. Then what they do is circulate that little something that they created as an established fact. Again, we've been saying that for ages. So Mick Wright also continues, and he also names what I have been calling the dehumanizing, and the way they dehumanize Meghan throughout their coverage. And the Mail, obviously they call her Meghan Markle rather than her actual married name. But I don't think it's about what they call her, more like what she remains in the minds of Daily Mail readers. Because even The Spectator, they wrote an article saying Harry should leave her, should divorce her and come back and marry an English rose. So basically it was racism, saying, leave the black girl, come and marry a white girl. That was essentially what they were saying. And at the end of the day, all the horrible words that she's been called, and mind you, this is a woman that the palace tells us was bullying people, but they were the ones calling her all kinds of names under the sun. The interloper, an irritant, the American, the this, the that, the other. Also, I think Mick Wright makes a point about Sarah Vine, the vile woman, and Max Pemberton. And I think it cuts to the heart of the whole operation, because Sarah Vine wrote about Meghan monetizing her own misery. Meanwhile, Sarah Vine is the one that I know she's done everything from slimming jabs, a wig for her hair loss. She's done so many things, and you can literally do a timeline of the ways she's been monetizing her own misery. So to me, that is a projection, and that is a confession of what she has been doing. Also, Max Pemberton called Meghan, when Meghan said she was the most trolled person on the planet, which she is, Max called her tin-eared self-pity. And both columns appear in a newspaper that has spent years monetizing bullying. And the paper is angry. Imagine the paper that is bullying her being angry that Meghan is saying, actually, by the way, I am being bullied. So I think it's disgusting. I think the article that Mick wrote, it hit the spot on so many levels. I think it's a great article. But I think also it tries to... It's a snapshot, I believe, and it just tries to do what movies do, try to give it some sort of resolution without actually resolving anything, because tomorrow the Daily Mail is still going to write another terrible article. They're still going to slag her off. They're still going to lie against her, and they are still going to monetize her fashion. So for me, the question is, what can we do? Well, we have the option of reporting to, I believe it's called Ipsos, but they are useless. We can also report to Ofcom, but they are also useless. We know that if it enters into defamation territory, there could be a lawsuit. But the problem is, who is going to fund that lawsuit? Isn't it better for that money to go towards Archie and Libet's trust funds than funding a lawsuit that you may or may not win? Because remember, after all, the judges that you are going to appear in front of, they are based in the UK as well, and they may very well agree with the Daily Mail. Who knows? I'm not saying judges are impartial, but when you hear constant, whinging and negative about a person, subconsciously you absorb some of it. That's all I'm trying to say. So at the end of the day, 19 days, 70 articles, but unfortunately the machine is rumbling on, and the machine will continue to make money. So unless we decide we want nothing to do with the Daily Mail, we're not, until it has zero readers, which unfortunately it won't, that's what we're going to get. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, please. And I know I've gone way over time, but I just had to address this and give it the attention that it truly, truly deserves. But anyway, my name's Elizabeth. I'm the author of The Luxpreneur. And for more insights like these, please like, share, comment. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, please. And make sure you are subscribing to Elizabeth Solaru 4970, which is the only channel that I have on this platform. Also, to support my work in holding truth to power, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Elizabeth Solaru, or you can get a copy of my book, The Luxpreneur, from Amazon, Waterstones, or Barnes & Noble.
70 stories in 19 days. The Daily Mail's Meghan machine of money and malice. Mike Wright's analysis of the Daily Mail's Meghan coverage is possibly the most forensically complete examination of how this specific media machine operates that I have read, and it deserves to be understood in detail. Wright starts with the numbers because the numbers are the argument. 70 news stories using Meghan as a hook in 19 days in April 2026. One story roughly every 2 hours on April 16th between 5 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. 3 stories in 12 minutes on April 17th. One about the rugby match at 11:23. One about the Her Best Life retreat at 11:35. One about her oversized shirt at 11:37. 11:35 and 11:37. 2 minutes apart. One criticising her for the retreat. One trying to earn affiliate cash from the shirt she wore at the retreat. The paper is monetizing Meghan twice simultaneously. Once through the outrage content that drives angry clicks, and once through the affiliate revenue that drives shopping clicks. And it maintains both positions because both are profitable. The machine knows there is money in the malice. That is Wright's conclusion, and it is the right one. Not ideology, not principled journalism, not genuine public interest. Economics. 70 stories, 19 days. The machine rumbles on. 70 stories, 19 days. The Daily Mail's Meghan coverage is a machine built on money and malice. The numbers alone make the argument impossible to dismiss. 70 news stories using Meghan as a hook in just 19 days during April 2026. On April 16th, one story roughly every 2 hours between 5 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. On April 17th, 3 stories published within 12 minutes of each other. This is not journalism responding to events as they unfold. This is a systematic, relentless production line engineered with a single purpose: to keep the clicks coming, the outrage burning, and the revenue flowing. When a media organisation is publishing at that velocity, with that consistency about a single individual, the word that applies is not coverage. The word is campaign. The machine that mocks and profits in the same breath. The paper is monetizing Meghan twice simultaneously. Outrage content drives the angry clicks, the derision, the criticism, the relentless drumbeat of mockery across the news pages. And then, in the same breath, the fashion pages pivot seamlessly to affiliate revenue, directing readers to purchase the very clothing worn by the woman they have just spent 3 paragraphs ridiculing. 11:35, one story criticizing her for the retreat. 11:37, one story telling you exactly where to buy the oversized shirt she wore there. 2 minutes apart. The editorial position and the commercial position are not merely in tension with each other, they are in direct contradiction with each other. And the paper maintains both without apparent embarrassment because both are profitable, and profit, as Wright makes absolutely clear, is the only principle that has ever consistently governed this operation. 70 stories, 19 days. How the Daily Mail builds. Its Meghan machine Wright's forensic examination of how specific stories are constructed is where the analysis becomes genuinely damning. The Her Best Life retreat is his primary case study, and it illustrates the method with uncomfortable clarity. The Mail's framing presented the retreat as something Meghan had created, a personal venture, a vanity project, rather than what the documented record establishes it to be. An event she was paid to appear at as one element of a full weekend programme. The gap between those two framings is not accidental. It is the gap the Mail manufactures deliberately because a paid appearance is unremarkable, while a personal creation invites a different kind of scrutiny and a different quality of contempt. The hospital footage story operates by the same mechanism, only more nakedly. 3 days after a brief hospital visit, 564 words appeared, constructed almost entirely from posts lifted off X, projecting tension and hostility onto a few seconds of footage that, by any honest accounting, showed nothing of the kind. The original footage contained no story. The Mail's framing conjured one from thin air, from social media speculation, from the ambient malice of anonymous accounts, and dressed it in the language of observation and fact. That fabricated something then travels, gets cited, gets built upon, until the invented narrative has accumulated enough repetition to feel like established truth. The machine does not report events. It manufactures them. 70 stories in 19 days. How the Daily Mail monetizes malice against Meghan. The point Wright makes about the Mail and social media obsessives is the one that deserves to sit with you longest, because it clarifies something that can otherwise feel vague and unprovable. The only meaningful difference between a conspiracy-minded account on X posting about a flicker of expression caught on video and the Daily Mail doing exactly the same thing is the size of the megaphone. A Twitter obsessive with 4,000 followers manufactures a narrative about a tense moment from a 3-second clip, and it reaches a few hundred people before dissolving. The Mail does the identical thing, with identical motivations and identical intellectual honesty, and it reaches millions. It takes a brief expression, a mouth tightening, an eyelash bat, a glance held a fraction too long, and transforms it into evidence of conflict, jealousy, tension, a story. That story then gets picked up by subsequent pieces, cited as established fact, treated as part of the settled record of who Meghan is and how she behaves. The original footage showed nothing. The Mail's framing created something, and that something, once created, does not disappear. It circulates, it compounds, it becomes the foundation on which the next fabrication is built. 70 stories in 19 days. The Daily Mail's Meghan coverage is a machine built on money and malice. Wright also names what I have been calling the dehumanizing framing throughout this month's coverage. The Mail consistently refers to her as Meghan Markle rather than her actual name. And that choice is not accidental or neutral. It is not what she is called, but it is what she remains in the minds of Mail readers. An interloper, an irritant, the woman Prince Philip dismissively called the American. The name is an editorial decision that communicates institutional belonging and exclusion every single time it appears on the page, quietly and persistently signalling to the reader that she does not belong, that she never quite earned her place, that she remains somehow outside the circle. And that signal, repeated across 70 stories in 19 days, across hundreds of stories across years, does not merely reflect a view. It constructs one. The subtle linguistic choices accumulate into something far more deliberate than style, reinforcing at every turn the dehumanizing framing that runs like a current beneath the entire operation. 70 stories, 19 days. The Daily Mail's economy of malice against Meghan. The hypocrisy at the centre of this operation becomes most visible when you look at the columnists the Mail deploys. Sarah Vine wrote about Meghan monetizing her own misery. Dr. Max Pemberton called her most trolled claim tin-eared self-pity. Both of those columns appeared in a paper that has spent years monetizing bullying as a business model. That is not an incidental irony. It is the whole story. The Mail is angry about Meghan discussing her online treatment because it has spent so many years being a significant and documented source of that treatment, and because it profits directly from the traffic that anger generates. The paper that built an audience on cruelty is now offended that the target of that cruelty will not perform her suffering quietly and without compensation. The machine condemns her for doing, at a far smaller scale, precisely what the machine has always done. 70 stories, 19 days, the Daily Mail's Meghan machine. Explained at its core, this is not a story about ideology, nor about any principled journalistic mission, nor about genuine public interest served by holding a public figure to account. It is a story about profit. The machine operates on a single motive, and that motive is money. The outrage drives clicks. The clicks generate revenue. The affiliate links generate more revenue still. The editorial position and the commercial position contradict each other entirely, and the paper maintains both without embarrassment because both remain profitable. Coverage will continue for precisely as long as it remains economically rational to produce it.